Good morning. This is the Blaine's World webcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. You can also listen in on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and get more information about this show and previous shows at our website, which is behind me, www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on cool things that are happening in Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine and a new friend of mine. The good friend of mine is Jimmy Ferraro, and the new friend is Millicent Hunnicutt. Am I pronouncing it right?
That's right.
Hunnicutt. And Jimmy knew the routine, but you can wave to all you fans and friends who are watching this. So that
Hello, everybody.
Okay, Jimmy's on the right and Millicent's on the left. I should mention.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Blaine.
Just to make sure. Okay, I should mention Jimmy's background. I could spend about 3.5 hours just on his background, but rather than talk about all the stuff you've done, Jimmy, I should just say that I've known Jimmy. I was thinking about this in a variety of contexts, but I've known you as an actor, producer, director, bon vivant, a photographer.
Oh boy, I'm not going to be able to put my hat on today.
Exactly, but Jimmy is this amazing guy who I guess I first heard about from the fact that you were in Fiddler on the Roof just a few times. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, just a little over 3,000 performances.
3,000 performances. And that you were in the National Touring Company, is that correct?
Oh yeah, I did it on Broadway, and I did 3 national tours.
Wow.
The last one I starred in, and that was in 2012 and 2013, and that was opposite my wife, Dieta Rowe.
Okay, very exciting. So Jimmy, you'll see all these cool things, especially now that he's come into the Western North Carolina area. He's become a producer. You do a lot of different other kinds of things. We'll talk about some of those things. Millicent, I just met here now, but Millicent is a nationally known entertainer. She's beyond thrilled to be on stage in Hendersonville, and you actually are from this area. Is that correct, Millicent?
I am a native. My family, we are actual natives of the Hendersonville area.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that then, because the first time you and I are talking, that you as a child, when did you get into acting?
Early on, I started taking dance at Pat School of Dance. Pat's my cousin. I was 3 years old. Took dance with her all the way through my high school years, or till I graduated high school. Yeah. I was at the youth theater at the Flat Rock Playhouse, and I performed a lot with my family at the Tryon Little Theater. So I got a lot of exposure.
Really good experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, yes. Pat School of Dance, is that still around?
Oh yeah.
Well,
oh yeah, they're phenomenal. Okay. They do a great job with their kids. They usually do the Christmas show at Flat Rock Playhouse. An outstanding job.
And do me a favor, Millicent, if you would, introduce me off the air to them, because I'd love to do a show on them, because I've heard about them through Flat Rock and through all sorts of other things. So I'd love to do a show on School of Dance. But do you remember the very first show you were ever in?
Very first show I was ever in.
Besides all the recitals.
Right.
You mean starring as Mrs. Claus in my second grade production of something or another?
Were you really? Was that the first show you were in? Do you remember?
No, I'm having a hard time remembering.
Well, Jimmy, I have this great idea I've shared with Jimmy in the past, Millicent. Wouldn't that be a great fundraiser for somebody to do? Maybe Hendersonville Theater. Everybody would recreate their very first role, or if not their very first role. Do you remember, did you act in high school?
Yes.
Do you remember a role, one of the first roles you were in high school?
In high school, I went to Hendersonville High School, and in Hendersonville High School, they always do a senior play, and we did Peter Pan, and I was Peter Pan.
All right. Hey.
Okay. Well, we'll have you recreate that role sometime. So after Peter, that's kind of tough though. Where do you go after you're Peter Pan? That's a pretty big role. Where do you go after Peter Pan?
To Never Neverland.
Right.
What was really wonderful growing up in the youth theater at Flat Rock Playhouse is I started performing on the main stage when I was 15. My first show there was Will Rogers Follies, and then every summer after I did another show. So that was really just quite an experience. I learned so much from, Robin Farquhar was there then, and the cast from all over, and I just soaked it all in. These people were incredible, and I learned a lot at an early age. And then when I graduated high school, I went to Lees McRae College, where they had a really nice performing arts department there. And after college, I just started performing. I just toured and here, there, and everywhere.
Okay, but this is now the first time you've had this particular role, is that correct?
That's correct.
Both,
Yes.
okay. And so you've been performing ever since you were in high school, college days as well. And I'll turn that then over to Jimmy, who also,
So this particular role, isn't that what you said, Blaine?
right, yeah,
Belle Barth. Now, who was Belle Barth? Belle Barth was a comedian, one of the first pioneers of women comics that told blue off the color material. And Belle Barth started off as a singer in the Catskills. And by the early 60s, she sold over 3 million adult party records. Now, these were albums
right.
that were at the record stores, but kept under the counter. You see, and people had to go in and say, do you have any Belle Barth records? And they would take them from under the counter, put them in a brown paper bag, and that's how they got them out of the store. And from listening to all her records, I have 13 of Belle Barth's albums. The families, when they would buy that, they would go like down in their finished basement and play these records for their adult friends while the kids upstairs were listening next to the door with their ears against the door. But
Now,
Belle Barth was also called the female Lenny Bruce.
Yeah.
And just like Lenny, she was arrested too.
now let me ask Millicent, before you heard about the show, had you ever heard of Belle Barth?
Well, no, yes and no. I know before the show. Well, my friend Sarah was in the
Okay.
original, correct?
Yes.
So I had already done a little research because I was very excited for her to play this role. So I had done just a tiny bit of research, but no, not really.
Now, let me
So
ask you,
6 years ago, we previewed the show, Raunchy Little Musical, and that was in Tampa, Florida. And then from there, we brought it off Broadway to New York. We did it there for 6 weeks. It was a tremendous success. And I just recently, this past December, did it for sold out houses in Chicago at the Skokie Theater. And now I'm just so delighted to be able to bring it home to Hendersonville.
now, Millicent, when you heard about this and you were going through the role, did Jimmy lend you his 13 albums, or have you heard any of the, have you heard the albums at all now?
I've listened to some. You can research this on YouTube. There's a
YouTube
lot
too?
of yes.
So you've
And the
wa-
show is filled of original Belle Barth routines.
Yeah. So you had this idea then, Jimmy, to bring this to, or not Hendersonville, 6 years ago. You had the idea originally to get the show. What gave you the idea to do a show on this?
Well, you know, interesting enough, about 15 years ago, the playwright Joanne Cook, who is a Chicago native, she brought a show to me called Sophie, Toady, and Belle. And that was a musical of Sophie Tucker, Toady Fields, and Belle Barth. Well, that was a tremendous success. I've since done it 3 times of the 3 icons. But then Joanne brought to me this new script on Belle Barth single. And at the time, it just wasn't the right fit. The material was a little too blue in its entirety, and it just wasn't the right fit for what I was producing at the time. So a few years later, I re-looked at the script. I went over it again, and I collaborated with Joanne Cook, and we came down with a whole new version of the show. It was originally called If I Embarrass You, Tell Your Friends, which was one of Belle Barth's albums. But we came up with a new title too. And the composer is Eli Levinson, and he is from Chicago as well. He's a Grammy-nominated composer, and he did all the music.
And he's fabulous.
So
Fabulous.
it's cool. So if we come to this, Millicent, we're not only going to have you tell jokes, I guess you tell some jokes, but you're also going to be singing in this as well? Maybe a little bit? How many songs are there?
Oh, there's quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, I think about 8 songs.
Okay, a bunch.
And it's a one-woman show now. And yeah, it's full of Belle's nightclub routines, and it also tells the story of her life. So it's a wonderful tribute to Belle Barth. The new show is called Raunchy Little Musical. Belle Barth is back.
Well, let me ask you, Millicent, too, in terms of a one-person show, had you ever done one before?
This will be my first one-woman show. I've done quite a few two-woman shows. It's weird.
Like always Patsy Cline,
Like
right?
always Patsy
Oh, you've
Cline.
done Patsy Cline?
Yeah.
Because I would think,
Yeah.
Millicent, the nice thing about doing a one-person show is if you mess up a line, the only other person knows is the director, right? So that's
The Hawkeye director, whoever that is.
is that it? So that'll be a break too. But is that like that must be a pretty big part for you? Is this like the biggest part you've ever had?
Who's to say?
Yeah, I mean, you
Yes.
played a lot of leading roles,
Yes.
starting a lot,
Okay.
but I think as the headliner in a
Sure.
one-woman show.
Yes,
Yeah, it's pretty
absolutely.
big part.
Okay, very exciting. Do we see some dancing as well, or is it just singing and telling jokes?
I'll shimmy around that stage. You'll see me.
Okay, good.
She does get bawdy, I have to say.
Is it-
This
well, was
sweet
it-
little innocent Southern girl from Hendersonville, North Carolina, will light your eyes up when you see it coming from the Catskills in New York and Spellbart.
well, you mentioned that, Jimmy. Let me ask you, Milson. Like, are your folks still around?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so let me ask that about in terms of having your folks see this. Are they prepared for this, or they know what?
Oh,
they're
they've
in for?
seen a lot. They've seen a lot.
They're really excited. They're great
Yeah.
supporters of the theater in our community.
Mhm.
Okay, but even the raunchy part of it, they don't mind that too much.
You know what? Like I said, they've seen a lot.
It's showbiz.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you, apropos of that, then, Jimmy, who's the show? Who should be seeing the show? What age range would you
Yeah,
say?
I would say, it's really, we say it's for mature audiences only. So I would say, 16 and up.
Okay,
Because
so-
the thing is that we have to remember that these jokes and all of those routines were bawdy and bold and raunchy in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Now it's nothing. What you see on television is much more raunchy than anything in this show.
well, you got me excited about seeing this, and I told you, unfortunately, I'll be out of town.
Oh, I think you should
Wednesday.
cancel your cruise.
Okay, just to see this. Well, let me ask you too. After this runs in Hendersonville, do you have any plans for it in terms of the future, where it's going
I
to go?
do. I can't disclose any of that
Sure.
right now. But this show is going to be playing March 8th and 9th here in Hendersonville at the Hendersonville Theater, which is a wonderful, intimate theater space. And I know that it's going to be a great place for this show.
And since you mentioned it, Jimmy, if you also have the, do you have the website handy for people to get tickets?
I do, yes. For tickets, you just go to www.hendersonvilletheater, that's with an RE.org. So that's hendersonvilletheater.org, or you can call for tickets at 828-692-1082. 828-692-1082. And the theater's at 229 South Washington Street.
And one of the great things about theater, it's a small, intimate theater, but any seat you have is going to be a good one,
Oh yeah, every seat's fantastic. And let me tell you, Victoria Lambert, who's the artistic director, she is doing a phenomenal job at the Hendersonville Theater. They've raised the bar in the past 2 years. Unbelievable. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to be part of their season.
Now, in terms of this particular show, let me ask you, Milson, how long have you been in rehearsal on this or working on this?
Well, what do you think?
2 weeks, 3 weeks?
About 2 weeks now.
Okay.
2 or 3 weeks.
So you have now, so if 2 or 3 weeks, and we're still now about 3 weeks away before the show, or 3 or 4 weeks away from the show. Do you have the whole, are you off book now yet, or is that coming?
No, not yet. We're
Okay.
getting there.
And also, our Grammy-nominated composer, Ilya Levinson, he lives in Chicago. He's going to be coming here to play the show, which is fantastic. So he's the musical director. So they've been Zooming their musical rehearsals.
Well, that really is exciting. So if they come, it won't be, which I just love the fact that it's not, so it won't be recorded stuff. It'll be all live.
Live music.
He's doing the
Yes.
piano versus, and let me ask you in general, Milson, how do you feel about that? In other words, unfortunately, because of finances, whatever, too many shows now are using tracks. I know, I guess have you done a bunch of shows with tracks?
Mm-hmm.
What's your feeling about tracks versus live?
Well, there are pros and cons. Tracks, you have them in your possession. You always know exactly what it's going to sound like. You can rehearse with your tracks, but there's nothing better than live music.
The thing is, those musicians on the tracks always show up on time.
They sure do.
Well, the thing I don't get, guys, is, they say for cost factors, a lot of places are having to go to, tracks. Yet Fortunately, we don't have it where actors are, we don't have actors mouthing the words, but that's my
Thank
fear.
goodness.
But Jimmy,
Thank goodness.
but that's my
We'd all
fear,
be out of a
Jimmy.
job.
No, but think about that, Millicent. That's my concern always, that if you could have musicians be out of jobs, it never made sense that you could take away the musicians, just hope, like you said, we never see actors just, can you imagine just mouthing the words?
We
But
hope
I-
not. We
right?
hope that never happens.
Yeah, but it's just a shame, I think, that so many places had to go to tracks as well. So you've been in rehearsal for this now a couple of weeks. Talk about what it is, performing show and rehearsal, so people have an idea for this. This takes you, so it's going to take you 4 to 6 weeks period just to get it off the ground. How long do you rehearse this on a daily basis or a weekly basis?
Yeah, we rehearse now about 3 or 4 times a week for, say, 2 or 3 hours. Millicent does a lot of work on her own, and then we also do some video rehearsing as well.
And how is that, Millicent, in terms of, Jimmy mentioned you working with your composer. How is it via Zoom? Does that work out well?
Say that one more time. I didn't.
How does it work out with your producer via Zoom? Does that work out
Oh.
well?
With Ilya, the musical director.
Well, that works out just fine because I'm going to tell you, Ilya is so incredibly talented that he makes you feel very comfortable, and we are able to stop, rehearse, record, and we have our. He's wonderful. It works. It's actually working out very well. I was a little nervous about it at first, but it's too good to be true.
Okay, and Jimmy, the same question. Have you ever done rehearsals like this via Zoom before for other
Yeah,
shows?
I have done it before. Yeah, I mean, it's a great tool, especially when we're working with people that aren't even in our state. So it's a wonderful tool, and it works magically well.
I can imagine there was a time when that wasn't available to you. You had to,
Oh, sure.
and Millicent, you had to actually get people there at every time, and it was difficult. If people come to this show, what should they expect to see? What's going to be
They are
happening?
going to expect to see a fabulous 90-minute musical comedy, and they will laugh their off, I promise you.
Now, is this so 90 minutes, which I kind of love, because I don't know about you. Well, I asked Millicent this, and I asked Jimmy too. It seems as I get older, I love shorter. So when you say 90 minutes, I love this. Is there an intermission in this show?
There is, yes. We have an
Okay.
intermission in the show. Everybody's going to want to buy a few drinks after they see the first half, I promise you.
Okay, and one of the nice things about Hendersonville, you can even bring the drink to the seats, which
Yes,
is kind of
yes.
nice. But it's funny. So Jimmy, you certainly have gone the other direction too. How long was Fiddler? How long a show was that?
3 hours. And
Yeah.
Jerome Robbins, who directed it, said, if it's 1 minute more than 3 hours, I'm closing the show.
Yeah. Oh, really? And then remember too, and so also 3 hours with 2 intermissions all the time, right?
Well, sometimes we had 2 intermissions depending on the venue, but most of the time we just did it with 1 intermission.
Okay, but 3 hours. Well, that's changed though a little bit. So fortunately,
Yeah, but so many of those war horses from that day were long shows like that. Just about 3 hours. Your Gypsies, Sound of Music. I mean, they were all very long at that time. And if you go back into theater history, you also see that the show started on Broadway at 8:30.
can you
So
imagine?
you weren't out there. You were out there all night long watching these shows.
Yeah. And the problem with the
They
intermission.
also cost $4.50 at the time too. So
You mean, I won't tell the actual price, but you mean if they come to see Hendersonville, it's not $4.50?
It's close. They're the same numbers, but it's $45.
Okay. But it's same numbers too, but it's a bargain because again, great seats, great look. Just you're going to have a blast if you see it. Talk a little bit about after the show, Millicent, if you can share. Do you have any upcoming plans or anything in the agenda?
As far as performance wise,
Yeah. Right.
we're always looking around and seeing what's next. Actually, no, I work full time at Highland Lake Inn, Seasons at Highland Lake Inn, as their banquet manager and putting together all their events. So I am there currently.
Okay.
When COVID happened, because I toured, I was always on the road. But when COVID happened, I actually moved back home, right? And I've left a few times. My last big, I guess, stint away was I was in Missouri, and I did a few shows there. But it's just a different time now, you know.
What's your favorite role you ever done?
Oh,
One of them.
ay. I love
Dolly?
playing, yes,
Dolly.
Dolly
Dolly.
Levi and Hello Dolly, Sheila in a Chorus Line, Betty in Great American Trailer Park musical.
Great show.
Okay. Do you have
The list goes on and on.
any things you haven't done that's kind of on your dream list of things you like, a role you'd like to play?
Always,
Do you have-
always.
Can you think
What
of one?
roles, any roles that you really love to do?
Mm. Yeah. But we don't need to go there yet.
Okay.
But yes.
And Jimmy,
I'm going to keep her because Millicent is a keeper. She's part of my company now. She's part of our world, you see. So I have a lot of things in mind for her.
and talk to me about some of these things, because one of the things I love about the fact that you now are into these, it's in this area, certainly the murder mystery kind of king of
Yes,
murder
that's
mysteries.
how. Yeah, now I had heard about Millicent and her talents for years and years in the Florida circuit, but I didn't get to meet her until I moved here 4 years ago. It's been 4 years already,
Oh my
Blaine.
gosh.
Yeah, 4 years, and immediately I was taken by. I mean, she's a triple threat of talent, and she's gorgeous. I mean, she's easy on the eyes. And very talented. So with that, I immediately offered her some roles in my murder mysteries. I have the murder mystery for hire company, and I do them all over the country. In fact, last year I did my big fat Italian wedding murder, which I think you saw,
I did, yes.
Blaine, when I did it in Hendersonville 4 years ago. I did it in Chicago for 5 weeks, and we won the Chicago Post Reader's Choice Award. How do you like that?
For the benefit of folks, Jimmy, who haven't seen those shows, if you could kind of maybe just give a brief overview what they are, but also then how do people find out more about them, because you're doing a bunch of them upcoming as well.
Yes, I am. In fact, I just did my big fat Italian wedding murder again a few months ago back in Chicago for the 5th time there. And I'm going to be doing my big fat Italian wedding murder at the Hendersonville Theater. It's going to be dinner theater there. The first time they're having a dinner show at the Hendersonville Theater. That's in May. And then in September, we'll be doing another murder mystery dinner show at the Hendersonville Theater called Funeral for a Gangster.
And Millicent,
So we're pretty excited about this. But I have another show coming up in 2 weeks, another murder mystery, and that's called Marriage is Murder. All right, now don't get any ideas, Blaine. But it's a 1920s Great Gatsby murder mystery. That's also a dinner show. In that show, we have a lot of Asheville's and Hendersonville's favorite actors. Michelle Sweat is in it, Eliza Montgomery, Madison Garris, Karen Covington Yao and her husband Mike Yao, Natalie Broadway, who I think you just saw in the Vagina monologue. She's in that too. And Pasquale LaCourte. Do you know him? He's fabulous.
Yeah, did you see him in it? Did you see him at Hard?
Yeah, I didn't see this latest production, but I heard he was wonderful.
Just incredible actor.
And Jonathan Forrester, who's fabulous. These are all wonderful, celebrated actors in our area, and they're all going to be in Marriage is Murder. That's going to be on February 19th. It's a Saturday night. It's going to be, it's February 24th. It's a Saturday night. It's going to be at the Main Event, and that's 125 South Main Street in Hendersonville. Tickets for that dinner show can be gotten at themaineventwnc.com. So that's www.themaineventwnc.com. Their telephone number is 828-974-1281. 828-974-1281. I promise you a good time. And what's great with these murder mysteries, Blaine, is that, as you know from seeing mine in the past, the audience participates. They become the detectives. They have to figure out who committed the crime, how they did it, why they did it, and they take part in the whole action of the show. So it's very fun.
Now, Milson, you're going to be in some of these too, or you've been in them?
I have been in some of his murder mysteries.
And
Yes.
he's going to be in some more in the future.
Okay. Do you enjoy that as well?
It's so much fun. I'd never done a murder mystery before. The audience has a ball. They have an absolute ball. They just jump right in with you, and you're having so much fun while you're doing it. It's awesome.
Well, what's probably interesting about it from an acting standpoint, it also gets you going a little bit because there's not an absolute set role, right? You have to change it around a little bit each time depending on what's happening.
Depending on the ending?
Yeah, well, the audience, and depending on the
Right.
endings, some of them have multiple endings. So if you come and see it again, or if you decide that you want to tell someone about it that's coming to see the show, well, it may not be the right ending when they see it, because, we have to mix things up a little bit.
Well, what's so much fun about them, Jimmy, too, and I imagine Millicent fits right into it, is they're also very interactive because even though you may have, like I was saying, the script, the actors are playing off the audience. It's so much fun to watch them and how you interact with the audience. That must be a lot of fun as well.
No night is the same, I'll tell you that.
Yes,
Okay.
especially when they mingle. They mingle with the audience, and we give out bribe money so that the audience can bribe the suspects to get clues.
So-
it's very interesting.
Well, I'm
And
glad-
I think I'm like one of the only people in the country that writes musical comedy mysteries.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it. So people don't have to bring their own money, though. You'll provide them with money.
Oh yeah, we provide them with
Okay.
money.
But also one of the nice things, too, is that you also give out, there's some prizes as well. So whoever.
Oh yeah, really good prizes too. Not like some other other places. We give out really good prizes. I promise you that.
And Jimmy, one more question. In terms of folks wanting to reach you for one of these many different things you're involved in, I mean, it's hard to keep track. Like, let me ask you a question. I don't see them watching the show here, but where are your roller skates, in terms of getting around? I mean, you're doing so many things, it seems like simultaneously.
It's true.
Magic carpet.
The magic carpet
Magic-
ride.
Well, how do people reach you, Jimmy?
Facebook. Go right to my Facebook page, Jimmy Ferraro, Ferraro, and you'll see all of the events that I put everything on there. So you'll see everything that is coming up in town, in Chicago, or wherever I am in the country.
And nice thing, no offense to you, Jimmy, but if they want to track down Millicent, they can also go to your Facebook page and you'll help them
Absolutely.
track her as well. And we'll give one last shout out if we can too. Aside from Jimmy Ferraro, I understand there's another member of the Ferraro family that's involved in some of your productions as well.
Yes, there is. Yes. Look, this is my better half for the past 37 years. That's my wife, the Broadway actress, Dee Etta Rowe. And I, coerced her and wrangled her to be in some of these murder mysteries as well. And she's always a great addition. Everybody loves her.
She's phenomenal.
She is. Anyway, I'd like to thank you both for being my guests on this edition of the Blaine's World webcast. Also, I'd like to thank my producer, Capitacetti, and encourage you to get out to Hendersonville Theater, because if Jimmy's involved in something, you're going to like it. And also, like I said, this one, you're going to have to redo this again or do a video of this, but lots of luck with it. Should be a blast. And
Thank
it's
you. We'll be
funny-
doing it again. I promise you.
Okay. As you're saying it, yeah, all I can think of, I knew a little Toady Fields, and then Joan Rivers was after, of course. The
Oh
period of
yeah,
time.
yes. Before Joan Rivers, before all of them, there was Belle Barth. And if you liked the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you'll
Sure.
love Belle Barth.
Okay. Did you see also, Millicent, did you see Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? Did you
Oh,
see it?
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So taking notes. Anyway, thanks, guys. Pleasure as always. Speak to you soon.
Thanks, Blaine.